Hello there everyone and welcome to another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. My name's Laz and to my right is Felipe, my esteemed co-host. How you doing, Felipe?
I'm fine, Laz, and you?
Yeah, we're not bad, thank you. People could mistake from what we're going to say now that people might think we've recorded on the same day, because what we've done this weekend is the same as what we did for the first episode.
Same thing.
Barbecue.
Formula One barbecue.
Barbecue, Formula One, good weather, and good rock and roll, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what life is all about.
It is, yeah.
I think we should actually start by describing where we are and what we have around us for people who are only listening to us.
Yeah.
Anyone who can't watch the video.
Well, we're in sunny Warwickshire at my house. We've got a nice countryside, haven't we?
Yes.
Is that what you meant by where we are?
Well, I mean, you know, the whole stuff. Laz is wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt, Power Slave, really cool stuff. And I'm wearing a Chewbacca t-shirt, love Star Wars. Star Wars.
Sorry, man, I feel this is a bit weird. I think it's a bit over the top.
That's
fine. No, I know what you're saying, because you were saying what Julia said.
Let's do it again.
How should we do it? How should we incorporate that in? Because I think you're right.
Well, you can just start by not saying that we're going to do this. We just start. I'm here with Felipe, who's wearing this nice, Chewbacca t-shirt.
Yeah, just randomly go into it. So I thought you meant where we are. It's like, I'm in the country.
No.
Cool.
Let's start again.
No problem.
Starting again.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. My name's Laz, and to my right is my esteemed co-host, Mr. Felipe Amarim. How you doing, Felipe?
I'm fine, Laz, and you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks, man. People could be mistaken because we're actually in the exact same scenarios when we recorded the first episode, aren't we?
Exactly.
Rock and roll, food, Formula One. We've done another barbecue, and Felipe's come over again for another weekend to record some more stuff.
Well, it doesn't get any better than that. Formula One barbecue, a bit of beer.
It's like, if it's not broken, why fix it? It's a great weekend format, isn't it?
We're going to do that every time. So if there's not Formula One and barbecue, I'm not doing.
You won't have a podcast. Yeah, exactly.
No podcast.
Excellent. Yeah, looking good, man. Everything okay? I love loving your Chewbacca t-shirt.
Cool, isn't it? Star Wars. Star Wars is rock and roll.
I'm rocking the Iron Maiden alternative Power Slave shirt, actually, because this isn't what the cover looks like.
Isn't it?
This is, well, do you know what? The cover is the pyramids and all the stuff, but it's in daytime.
All right.
Whereas this is like, it's almost as if it's dusk, as the sun's coming down.
Yeah.
Cool. Found it online. Thought it was a really cool
stuff.
shirt. Yeah. All good, man. And lovely weather and podcasting time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. What we're going to talk about today.
So this week's episode is called Whole Lotta Zep, because we are going to be reviewing, discussing and analysing Led Zeppelin II's impact on music and the world of rock and roll. So should we go straight in?
Yeah, good choice, right.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had to choose this episode. By all means, do the ceremonial beer cracking.
Yeah.
There we go, lovely.
Now we can start.
I'm a water guy, but cheers. Yeah. So we thought, I mean, because this is our first album review, if you like, we thought we'd start with something that's close to both of us, because we both love this album, we both love Zep. And I think it's going to be really easy for us to talk about and get into.
It's probably the band I've listened to like the most. I don't remember listening to any other band as much as I've listened to Led Zeppelin. So, which doesn't mean I know more about them than you do. So.
It's just the music, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, Led Zeppelin II. This was a really important album because something that people might think that the first album of a band is more seminal because it introduced the band to this to the world.
Yeah.
But sometimes the follow-up album can be better because they can often work and improve on what they did before. And I think this is the case for Led Zepp 2, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this album was released in October of 1969. But do you want to talk a bit about how they recorded it? 'Cause it's quite a weird process for the 60s, wasn't it?
It is, yeah. I think one interesting thing about recording sessions at the time is most bands would be playing live in studio. I mean, overdubs existed, but they were not commonplace as they are now. And you wouldn't, fix recordings, fix the tempo or notes or pitch or whatever. So bands would perform live and maybe overdub some guitar solos and vocals and backing vocals. That's how they did the first album. They actually recorded the whole of the first album in a few hours, really.
Really?
But, yeah.
Was it just like a live performance?
Yeah, well, it's not. I think they, I don't know, it's something between 20 and 30 hours in total, something like that. No, I don't know if it was on the same day, but they didn't have budget for like more than that certain amount of
That makes
hours.
sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, so they actually did it. Like
You have to get the album
Yeah, so
done.
the first album is pretty much kind of a live album in that sense. They play the songs how they used to play them live. It's loads of jamming. But yeah, so the first album has a huge impact, as everyone knows. But Led Zeppelin II was recorded on the road. So they used several different studios. They didn't do everything in one place. And and they had to set up the gear, mic it up, do the session, and then pack it up because they needed to use the same gear for the tour. So and then imagine the nightmare of like preparing a recording session, and then you just have to go away at the end of the day with all the gear, do a gig, etc. So they did that. I think they were touring North America, isn't it? US and Canada.
You'd think that kind of approach would lead to a very disjointed sounding album, wouldn't you? You'd think that the songs would sound different, because if one song's been recorded in one way with different gears in like New York, and another song was recorded in a short amount of time in London, you'd think that there'd be some disjointedness within the album, but it doesn't sound that way, does it?
I do think there is a bit in terms of the technical quality. Not saying there's no.
So you do think that? That's
I do
interesting.
think
Why?
not in terms of the music. That's how powerful the music is and makes the music more relevant. If you listen to the second part of Heartbreaker after the guitar solo, so it clearly sounds to me that they did the first part in one town, and then they did just that guitar solo, proper solo, literally just the guitar.
Yeah.
In another town, another studio, and they did the ending, another part. The guitar riff sounds so different. First time I've listened to it, not only because it's a different riff, I thought, oh, is that another song? Oh, it's the same song.
Oh, really?
So the whole ambience.
Do you mean production-wise?
Yeah, production-wise. Probably because you can't really get the exact same sound from two different studios. But if you analyze it like technically and listen carefully, you can notice some differences, especially in the ambience and stuff like that. But then you would get too technical. But the point is, even with those, difficulties, and even with the different sounds from different studios, the songwriting is so powerful in that album. The riffs and the structures of the songs, that everything just works fine together. And I think it's a big departure from the first one, because the first album was a jam, really.
Well, that's it. Jimmy Page said that when they were writing and recording this album, they actually, or he, whoever was the predominant songwriter, wrote this for the band. So it wasn't about a guy who'd written all the songs getting his band to come and add their parts. This was songs, or these were songs that were written to be played by the band Led Zeppelin, who at this time, as you said, were on tour and they were establishing themselves as a band.
Yeah.
And although it doesn't make, I think it makes sense what I'm saying, the first album was Led Zeppelin, but it was songs brought by Page that the rest of the band had to fit around.
He was way more in control. He
Exactly.
obviously stayed in control for most of their career.
But this album was written for the band, knowing what John Paul Jones can do, knowing what John Bonham and John Paul Jones can do.
In my opinion, it's where John Paul Jones plays at his best.
Yes, I agree. As a bass player,
sure.
I completely
Is
agree.
the most creative bass lines are there, and he seemed to be totally free, like musically, artistically. So it sounds really great.
Yeah.
And also is where you have Moby Dick. There's a drum solo. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that Page was like, okay, now I'm confident after touring with these guys. They have a lot to show. They have a lot to deliver. I'm going to give them some of the spotlight.
As a drummer, how important was Moby Dick to the world of rock and roll and to the world of drummers at that time?
Well, it kind of changed the whole thing, isn't it? Not only because it's in the album, because they performed it live and Bonham would do it for like 20 minutes. So
I read that they had about 20 minutes worth of takes to make Moby Dick for the album. They got down to 4 minutes.
That's another thing that you can't imagine how they pieced together different solos recorded in different studios, and they made it sound like one solid drum solo. And it's a proper solo, like the guitar one in Heartbreaker, because everyone stops playing and the drummer gets to show off.
Yeah.
But Cream has done that before with Ginger Baker. They would have a song where he would be the soloist, and then start the song again. But you can see that Page wrote the song for Bonzo, because it's like it's an instrument. It's their only instrumental song. No, there's some acoustic songs in other albums, but it's their only, I think, full band instrumental song. So they written that song for John Bonham to play a solo.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a blues chord progression. It's just like, okay, here's some riffs. We're going to play for a while, and then there's a drum solo, then we play again.
Well, an interesting difference between because you mentioned Ginger Baker from Cream and John Bonham from Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
A fundamental difference is, although I think, we will talk about Cream eventually on this show because they're such a hugely influential and innovative band, but Ginger Baker was a jazz drummer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So I suppose in Ginger Baker's world, it was kind of normal for drums to have solos.
Yeah, exactly.
But in the world of rock and roll where John Bonham was from, maybe it wasn't so normal.
Well, you can argue that's the first famous rock drum solo.
Yeah.
Okay, people have done it before live, but Moby Dick.
But to get it on an album.
Yeah, on an album like that, and to be confident enough to have that in an album, like, well, you want a drummer to play for 3 minutes, I think, in the album, and 20 minutes live, and also the drums, they became really, really important for the overall sound of the band, and people would come to the gig to see John Bonham performing.
Exactly.
The magazines would be talking about him. So it's one of the very first times in music history that people are going to be talking about the drummer as much as they will talk about the singer or the guitar player. So it's undeniable that with Moby Dick and with Led Zeppelin II, John Bonham and Led Zeppelin changed the history of drumming in rock music, for sure.
Yeah, well, there's, quite a lot was done. You mentioned about the live stuff as well, and what I was reading is that actually most of the riffs from this album came because they were playing live, as you've mentioned. They were touring the USA, Canada, the UK, whilst writing material for Led Zeppelin II. And where a lot of those come from is, for those of you who know Led Zeppelin I, there's a song called Dazed and Confused on there. And that's a song that's on the album. It's about 4 minutes long, and it has a start and a finish and a middle section where in the album track they kind of improvise and it goes off a little bit, just kind of like Whole Lot of Love in this album. But when they played it live, Dazed and Confused could go on for 25 minutes. You'll remember in our first episode when I said that's actually how I got into this music. It was my dad played me a 26-minute version of Dazed and Confused, and John Paul Jones commented that most of the riffs from Led Zeppelin II came from improvised sections when they were doing Dazed and Confused live.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I found a quote. He said, so this is from John Paul Jones. He said, "We'd remember the good stuff and dart into a studio along the way."
So yeah, you hear those stories about bands writing songs during sound checks, but what they would do is like writing on the spot, isn't it? You're performing live, you improvise a melody on the guitar, on the bass, and think, oh, this is actually a riff I can use in a song. So I think the songwriting element on Led Zeppelin II is definitely a step forward compared to Led Zeppelin I.
It's just a different way,
Led Zeppelin I, they were, to put it nicely, they were borrowing blues stuff. They still did that on Led Zepp II and further on, but you have like references to blues lyrics and riffs and stuff like that. But they were kind of defining what Led Zeppelin was right there. I think the first album is just a really powerful album, but there's loads of like jamming around there. I don't know what to do. I'm going to play this for 5 minutes. But Led Zeppelin II, in terms of songwriting, in terms of structure, knowing exactly what sounds and what riffs they wanted, I think it sounds solid. And they had the budget, if not the time, they had the budget to do it.
Make it sound good.
And it sounds like, sounds so alive, because it's like you're playing, you're touring and recording. There's no, better time for a band than in the middle of a tour to be creative.
That's absolutely true, and we know that, don't we, from our experiences?
Yeah.
When we toured Brazil at the end of, was it 2019? I
don't remember anything that happened in the last 2 years. Man.
The end of 2019, we were touring Brazil, myself and Felipe with Jack, and we had done 3 weeks. I mean, we had 2 gigs a week for 3 weeks, and then as soon as those gigs finished, the momentum we carried from those gigs, we then, the day after our final show, went into a studio in the middle of the Brazilian rainforest, which was just stunning. And we carried that momentum, and we wrote the song World on Fire with Jack, didn't we? It was the first time that the three of us had written a song together.
And we wrote the song there. Like,
yes,
so Jack came with the riff. Oh, this is the lyrics and melody in the song. So I think what Zeppelin did was similar to that. Like, we're, jamming and improvising live. And I think that's a good idea. We have a studio session tomorrow. Why not use it?
Yeah.
So maybe, but still, it sounds more like they were totally in control. And obviously, you have the psychological element as well. You are successful at this point.
Yes.
People respect you. So
you take more risks.
You take more risks. You think they're gonna buy whatever you release at that point. Yeah. And I think they did an amazing job in that sense. And it's interesting also to mention how it sits perfectly between Zep 1 and 3. Because
we'll talk about this because this is an album episode. But when we do a Led Zepp band episode, we'll go deeper into this because I have very strong opinions on.
Yeah,
I love the progression of Zepp 1 through to 4 because, and then you can hear it. I don't want to get carried away because we've got to save this for the Zepp episode. But the journey from 1, 2, 3, 4, Houses of the Holy to Physical Graffiti is stunning, and you can hear the band get better and better with each album. Yeah. But let's save that for the Zepp episode.
Yeah. So you have what you have like in Led Zeppelin 2, in contrast to 1 and 3, is maybe as heavy as the first album. But with more confidence and sounding more like a band. Yeah. They knew each other. They was been on tour a few times in America and the UK. So that is more like, okay, we're totally confident about our skills and our ability to write songs. Yeah. And that's it. It's really cool. Really cool.
Right, so as we said, this they recorded this whilst they were on tour. They actually recorded it over 8 months. I think they did it from January to August of 1969. And they went to 6 different studios across the world. There was New York, LA, London, Vancouver, Memphis.
God, you can't do that nowadays.
It's just too expensive to do, isn't it? But that's what happened, and then Jimmy Page would take all the tapes along with him, and they do some editing depending on the studio they're at. I read one thing where they said, I think it was in Vancouver, they call it a studio, in quotation marks, studio. Page said it was more like a hut at the back of a garden. God. It only had an 8, what's the phrase? I have my notes. An 8-channel tape thing. And it didn't even have a headphone input. So Page went there with his guitar and just, he didn't even know what he was listening to.
Oh, he couldn't listen back to his own guitar.
But I think, we touched on the style of the album, and I think what's really important is to know that there's a lot of styles incorporated into this album, because Zep 1, you could, if you're kind of forced to call it one style, you could call it a blues rock album.
Yeah.
But Zep 2 incorporates a lot more stuff. I mean, some people call Zep 2 one of the first heavy metal albums, not compared to what we know metal as today, but a loud album with distorted guitars, Robert Plant screaming and wailing. I think at the time that's what heavy metal was.
I think the guitar was like pretty much in your face. Like you don't have that before that album, I guess. And it makes sense. Well, so layers and layers of guitars, distorted, the shouting kind of stuff.
Well, on top of that, you hear things like Whole Lotta Love. Has that middle section, which was quite psychedelic, like that 60s psychedelia stuff, which we heard quite a bit on Zep 1 in
that's interesting, isn't it? Because they were kind of challenging the mainstream music, because they were like, okay, this is going to be the single. Let's put it like that. That song.
Which one?
Whole Lotta Love. But they said, no, we want this like middle section with 2 minutes of noises and stuff.
Well, do you know something?
And they actually did. There's a radio edit, isn't it?
Yes.
They didn't agree with that.
Someone tried to make a radio edit, and it was the first. Whole Lotta Love was the first single that Zep released from the album, and the UK radio stations tried to edit it and cut it down, and they said, no, we don't want it. And they never released a single in the UK again.
Oh, wow.
Did you know that?
I didn't know
I did that when I was doing my research.
There you go.
They were so fed up that these producers and these radio guys
were
saying, cut it down, Well, that's great, isn't it?
But again, we were talking on the first show how rock and roll is not only music, it's an attitude. It's like, would you dare to challenge the industry and say, no, this is what I think is good music and good art. And if it's not commercial enough, I don't care. Because in the end of the day, you can still sell a lot and can still make money by being original. And they've proved that. So like Whole Lotta Love is, it's a hit. And
why should Zeppelin compromise their style to suit a radio station? Why should they make their song fit into a 3-minute bracket when the song they've written is 4.5 minutes? That's the rock and roll attitude.
Exactly.
We don't compromise for anything. What's the Rorschach quote?
Never compromise, not even in the face of Armageddon. Yeah.
Apply that to Zeppelin.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they do. Yeah. So that's it. Rock and roll, never compromise.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I read this interview with Billy Gibbons talking specifically about Whole Lotta Love, and he said the first time he heard the song, it was like, wow, is this what is that? Like, really impressive riff. But he said something that is really interesting, which is that riff is still sounds powerful now. If you listen, if you bring the levels up to 11 and listen to that opening riff, that is as powerful and relevant as it was at the time. And how many years after that?
Why doesn't Billy just make 10 louder?
Because if we can go to 11,
we fitted in our Spinal Tap reference.
Yeah.
I'm happy now. Yeah. End the show. Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
Is it mandatory to do one Spinal Tap reference per
I feel
episode?
like we have to try.
Yeah.
I feel like we owe it to Spinal Tap to try.
It, yeah.
But anyway, Whole Lotta Love. I mean, let's start there because obviously, 9 tracks on the album. Whole Lotta Love is the one that kicks it off. As you said, it is such a landmark in guitar music, rock music, 60s music, and rock and roll in general. Because I mean, when I was doing some research, it's such an important song. Check this out. So Rolling Stone named Whole Lotta Love the 75th greatest song of all time. Q said it was the 3rd best guitar track of all time. VH1 called it the 3rd best hard rock song ever, and BBC Radio 2 called it the best guitar riff of all time. Now that's a bunch of compliments, isn't it? Right there.
How interesting it is to be the best guitar riff with just a few notes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's the rhythm of the riff that
it's 3 notes.
Yeah.
Do 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 dun.
And then it's
3 notes.
That kind of like it's like the riff is calling you, like, pay attention. Here we are.
Yeah.
And then the rhythm is just so solid. Again, there's an interesting thing there because LZII 1 starts with, good times, bad times. If everyone plays the same 2 notes together, and it's really strong. This one's like, okay, here's the guitar. How cool it is. A few bars later, you got the bass, isn't it? Or the start.
No, you're right. Yeah, the bass comes in after.
It's like, okay, see how it sounds more powerful when the bass comes in. And then you have Robert Plant screaming on top of that.
Bonham's not even in it. No,
so exactly. So you kind of build up, showing how good each band member is as it goes. Like, here's the guitar, here's the bass, here's the vocals, and if they didn't blow your mind by then,
then Bonham comes in
with a massive drum fill,
makes
loud,
us all know the Zeppelin are a big band
into the chorus. Yeah. And that's it. You don't need anything else, and they keep delivering until the end of the song. So
that's right. Yeah, I mean, I kind of think the less said about Whole Lotta Love, the better. Just go and listen to it, and you'll hear what a great track is.
Yeah, that's it.
Following Whole Lotta Love is a track called "What Is and What Should Never Be," which is actually a fascinating track, isn't it? Because it's really hard to kind of categorize it. It's not a soft blues track. It's not a heavy rock track. It's I just call it it's chilled, isn't it? I don't know what to call it.
Psychedelic hippie rock ballad.
Yeah, and this is the first taste we get of John Paul Jones's stupendous melodic bass playing, because there's actually not much guitar on there. Jimmy Page is just playing the chords, and again, you start a song with vocals.
Yeah.
And if I say to you
and
tomorrow,
the bass comes in.
And then the bass with that stunning melody, it's so different, isn't it?
It's my favorite in the album.
Oh, really?
Alongside Ramble On. Yeah.
I'll tell
you why. Because as I said, it starts with the vocals, and the tempo is not steady. It's never there. They build up the tempo. The vocals guide the band. So you see how they're actually playing with each other. You can't put that, you can't play that song against a metronome. It's not going to work. It's not perfect at all. It is there. It flows. And you have all the instruments again coming one after the other. And the drums are so quiet during the verse.
Aren't they? Beautiful.
And so loud in the chorus. And Page said in an interview that one of the elements they were looking for when they started Zeppelin, he first talked to Robert Plant about, the concept for the band is I want light and shade. And that's what I want.
Beautiful.
You
so
know,
a whole lot loves the shade. What is
well,
it?
actually,
Needs the light.
in the same song in that case.
Okay, yeah, because it gets heavier, doesn't it, for the choruses and the ending as well. I see what you mean.
If you just play for someone, you play the chorus of that song.
Yeah.
I say, well, this is, fairly heavy. And if you play the intro, it doesn't sound like the same song.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
what is hard, I think, it's easy for any musician to write two different parts that sound like, oh, this one is light, this one is heavy. And okay, but you piece them together.
Yeah. And to find the way to transition from the light into the dark. There are a few really important things on this song.
From the light into the dark.
That's album title or band name.
Whatever.
There's some very innovative things that happen on this song. I'll talk about the first one first, and that's the I don't know what you call it, the production or the engineering on this. You'll notice that as the song comes to its climax with that end section, which is basically like a jam, Page's guitar goes from left to right in your ear.
Oh yeah.
And you've got to think that obviously the Beatles did so much with production and engineering in mid-60s, but you're still hearing, you've got to remember that this is still innovative stuff. Yeah. Despite the fact the Beatles did it 5 years earlier, it doesn't mean that the Beatles did it and bang, everyone did it. It was still being introduced. And so I love that section towards the end of the song where you've got in your ears, you've got da-dun, 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 and it just comes to you from both sides. It's fantastic. And that's what Jimmy Page was doing a lot of on this album, is he was experimenting with the engineering and the mixing and the producing of it. And there's a few in Whole Lotta Love as well, isn't it, where doesn't John Bonham keep the percussion going and it goes from the left side? No, it's not. It's Plant's vocals. It's like goes from left to right, goes to the other side and then round around the top of your head. It's lovely.
And it's mental because that kind of middle section of Whole Lotta Love is totally experimental in terms. And if it wasn't for the sound engineering, it would be just boring.
It would.
It's all about the effects. It's all about they explore the effects. But it's interesting that at that point, with fame and money, they could have hired a producer, but then again, it shows the confidence they had.
That Page had in himself.
Yeah, Page was like, I'm going to produce this myself again.
Why wouldn't you either? Why, if you know what your band has got to sound like, why would you put it in the hands of someone else?
Well, fear. People like, what if it doesn't work?
Yeah,
but he works. I mean, he works when they know what they're doing.
Another really important thing is rapping. Because in this song, if you think about it, Robert Plant does some rapping.
Wow.
Do you know the part I mean at the end?
The same part. The very end.
The wind don't blow when you really shouldn't go, when it only goes to show, whoa, 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 whoa.
For that point in time.
In the late 60s, you got an early example of some rapping.
God, yeah.
Crazy, isn't it? And it was actually a little side note. This was where Robert Plant's first writing credit on the Led Zeppelin tune, which is cool.
Yeah.
Anyway. Right, next tune we go on. It's kind of different, the next tune, because we've had a hard rock song, we've had a psychedelic song, and now we've got a pure blues, the Lemon Song, my personal favourite of the album. What can you say about the Lemon Song other than it's just a blues track?
It's blues. They borrowed,
yeah.
That's Killing Floor, actually. There's an early pressing of Led Zepp 2 that actually they have Killing Floor as the title of the song.
Do you know something? Do you know
Howling Wolf?
Do you know the record shop in St Albans where we played that time?
Yeah.
I bought Led Zepp 2 on vinyl for my dad from that one.
Does it say Killing Floor now?
Yes.
Oh,
my one doesn't.
No,
my one has Lemon Song. Oh, you have to take mine out. My one has Lemon Song, and my dad got the Killing Floor.
I think they just thought, we can get away with this because basically that's blues. That's not their, it's not their child, isn't it? No. Basically, what they did was, if you listen to Killing Floor by Howling Wolf, it's fast paced. It's an up tempo blues song, quite funky, I guess. And
they pay homage to that with the middle section.
But the riff is based on the original riff as well. But what they did was amazing. It's like, let's play that so much slower.
Yeah.
And we think high pitched vocals. It's not blues, isn't it? So I think what they were doing is proper heavy blues.
Yeah.
Right. And also, I think the main issue is not that. It's not like, playing a riff that sounds like that song is the lyrics. That's where people would say, oh, they're just stealing from the blues. We got to be fair and say, yes, they did do that. Plant admitted that, time and time again. We have the lawsuits and everything.
Just quickly on that, Zeppelin's only problem was that they didn't credit all the time.
Yes,
I've got no issues with taking lyrics, taking music, forming it and moulding it into your own. We'll talk about this when we get to Bring It On Home. Well, you just got to give them credit. That's it. Just put their name on it. That's it.
Well, you got to say that even Howling Wolf took the idea of Killing Floor from an earlier song.
Yeah, Arthur McKay.
Yeah, is that it?
Yeah, Arthur McKay. The song was called Squeeze My Lemon.
Oh, no, that's where Robert Johnson got the idea.
Oh, you're right. So Robert Johnson got it from Arthur McKay. I just can't remember the song name.
Exactly. So there's a song. If you want to check, we can use Google here.
Oh, no, I've got it.
We're allowed to do whatever.
It's in my notes. So Robert Johnson put the song. No, I'm right. Robert Johnson.
That's for the line. The line.
No, Robert Johnson in his song "Traveling Riverside Blues" says "Squeeze My Lemon," which is from an Arthur McKay song called "She Squeezed My Lemon."
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But there's an early blues song called "Hard Time Killing Floor Blues."
Is that Howling Wolf?
No, it's not. No. Howling Wolf took the Killing Floor from that song.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I forgot the name of the guy, so I'll do a research. Okay. We're going to put in this, in the.
Yeah, just a quick note, guys. We've responded and we've got lots of feedback from our first episode, and a few things that people said is that they would have liked to have some form of reference to whenever we speak about specific songs or musical examples. So. We've got a little surprise for you in one of the segments of this episode. But what we're going to do is every episode. We haven't decided yet whether we're going to do a different playlist for every episode or just one big Long Live Rock and Roll playlist which has every tune in. But we're going to make a big playlist on Spotify for you guys where every time we do a show, any songs we talk about, including these blues songs, we're going to put them in the playlist so you guys can hear what we're talking about. So I don't think we're going to put the whole of LZII in our playlist because it's obvious the episode is about it. But these songs we're talking about by Johnson, Howling Wolf, we'll stick them in the playlist for you, and it'll be available on our Spotify, and we'll put the link on our social medias and stuff. So
it's good to do research on those things, isn't it? So
it's just great to hear where it's come from.
Yeah.
We spoke about it in the first episode, seeing the journey that we got from.
So see, you can just claim that they stole that song from blues artists, but in the end, it's a homage, as I said. And you have Howling Wolf getting an idea or stealing an idea from an early blues singer and writing Killing Floor, and you have the first lines from Killing Floor as the first lines of the first verse for Lemon Song, and the Lemon thing is Robert Johnson. So you got like 3 or 4 different blues singers kind of quoted somehow in the song. It's really cool.
Yeah, excellent. So after Lemon Song comes the beautiful track called Thank You. Which again, I mean, how do you describe this track? Because it's not psychedelic like What Is and What Should Never Be, and it's not rock, and it's not blues. It's pop. It's early pop.
I think it's pop music somehow because it's a cheesy low ballad.
The lyrical content as well. He wrote this song about his wife, Robert Plant.
Yeah. Beautiful lyrics.
Just stunning, aren't they? And the soft guitar is just wonderful to hear, isn't it? It's Page plays this on a 12-string acoustic, actually, and you've got John Paul Jones on the Hammond organ just lending those stunning harmonies.
And you have John Bonham's backing vocals.
Which part?
Little drops of rain.
Oh, is that him singing behind it? Amazing. Is this not the best rock and roll band ever?
It's kind of fun time. John Bonham was a great singer. You can hear. I mean, the few times where he got the chance to sing a few things as a backing vocalist, he did a great job.
Yeah.
But that song is the opposite of the rest of the album. No one is trying to show off.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it's a bit. We can almost consider it as a pop song. Because there's no like complicated guitar solos or like impossible drum fills or anything that's going to make you think, oh, that guy can really play. It's not about, that song is not about the musicians. That's Led Zeppelin writing a good pop ballad.
Writing for the sake of the song.
For the sake of the song.
The song is what is most important in this section.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's all
I mean, this song has been so critically acclaimed, like people love it. I mean, just a few quotes. Michael Madden, who's a music critic, wrote that this song breathes easy during the verses and ascends elsewhere in the song, which is lovely, isn't it? Think about all the space you have in those verses.
Yeah.
There's not much playing at all, is there?
No, not so.
There's nothing. Is it just his voice? Or does John Paul Jones hold the chord?
No, John Paul Jones playing the keyboard. And it's interesting because he's playing keyboards. I think for the first time you have John Paul Jones as the keyboard player in the band.
And that was really important to Zeppelin later on.
Oh yeah, it was. Much more than the bass player. And that song's like, okay, we can prove that, with just the chords and the main melody and lyrics, we can deliver a good song. If you listen to the whole first verse, it's pretty much that.
Yeah.
And again, you can't measure the tempo of that intro when the keyboards and the vocals are going on. So when the drums come in is when they establish a tempo and they groove. But it's really cool.
Rick Rubin says, the delicacy of the vocals is incredible. The acoustic guitar and the organ work together to create an otherworldly presence, which is just lovely, isn't it?
Poetic.
Perfect way to describe it.
Poetic.
Yeah. Do you know what? Something I got in my notes is, again, we were talking about the progression of Zep 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, we'll get more into it into our Zep episode, but Zep 3, I'll summarise quickly. For me, Zep 1, if I'm being broad, Zep 1 blues, Zep 2 rock, Zep 3 folk, Zep 4 everything from 1, 2, and 3 together.
Yeah.
This song is an early sign of their folk influences, don't you think?
For sure. Acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
That says everything about it.
Exactly, yeah. So this is a little bit of what's to come in Zep 3, isn't it?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, after Thank You, we have the incredible Heartbreaker. It is, yeah. What a tune. I mean, we play this song on tour with Jack, don't we? And it's just such a great tune to play. The riff is just
fun.
incredible.
I think when you play that song, it just becomes way more interesting because you start noticing the details and it's just, again, the guitar's in your face, loud, and it's a riff. That riff, though, it's like one note after the other in the same pace. It's kind of, I'm telling you a story and I'm going to tell it slowly. You can understand everything. I
think you'd call it lazy playing behind the beat because it's not bam 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 ba da bam.
No, there's a swing to it.
Bam bam ba da da.
It's very. There's a swing to it, and great opening riff. Vocals are awesome again, and the groove is funky, and there's lots of space, and then you have the guitar solo, like proper solo, only guitar, and that probably has been done before, but it's probably the first famous,
I don't think it has. I think that guitar solo, the fact that it's a solo on its own, is one of the first times this happened. And a lot of people have really credited this guitar for being an influence on their playing. For example, Van Halen.
Oh, you can
Van Halen says this about the song. So Van Halen cited Heartbreaker as the influence for him doing the tapping.
Yeah.
He said, I think I got the idea of tapping watching Jimmy Page do his Heartbreaker solo back in 71. He was doing a pull-off to an open string, and I thought, wait a minute, open string, pull-off? I can do that, but what if I use my finger as the nut and move it around?
Yeah.
I just kind of took it and ran with it.
So there you go.
Heartbreaker influencing Van Halen to do his eruption.
So there would be no Van Halen without Heartbreaker. Not without Jimmy Page, but specifically without that song.
The main riff of Heartbreaker actually is really interesting because it uses and it plays on the minor blues pentatonic.
That's too technical for a drummer.
I'll talk to you guys then. The minor blues pentatonic. I mean, a pentatonic scale is 5 notes in a scale, and it's basically taking away. Again, I don't want to get too musical, but it's taking. If you play a scale, the scale has 8 notes, including the root and then the root above. And what pentatonics are basically is removing any tensions in the scale. Again, I'm not going to get too musical, but a pentatonic scale is 5 notes. Now, the blues pentatonic scale is 5 notes and adding 1 in the middle, which we'll talk a bit more about later. That's the blue note. And Led Zeppelin. Well done, mate.
I know my theory. Come on.
The minor pentatonic blues scale was used a lot by Led Zeppelin and very heavily.
So when you play the blue note, again, you making a reference to the blues.
Yeah.
Without, that's the thing. It's a simple... in order to do that, you need to know blues. You need to know what a blue note is. So that's all intentional. They know what they're doing.
I don't see why we should. Let's just talk about it very quickly. So we thought that again, due to some feedback, people wanted to hear some examples of riffs and stuff. So what we'll do now is I'll just do a very quick thing about the pentatonic, the blues pentatonic. So here's the pentatonic scale, the minor pentatonic. Now the blue note you add in, and that's the only difference. But you hear the blues in that note, don't you?
You hear the blues. So when you hear the blues, you know it's a blue note.
And that scale, the blue one, was used so many times by Zeppelin in so many different forms, which we'll touch on again later.
That's why it doesn't matter if they get too heavy or whatever. There's always going to be an element of blues.
Yeah. Well, I know you don't pay attention much to the harmonic stuff of what we do in Jack's band, but as I'm the bassist and I have to learn the notes, Jack uses the minor pentatonic blues scale a lot. Most of his opening riffs use that scale.
So that's why people still say, "Oh yeah, but he's still somehow a blues artist."
Well, that's why
you can't get rid of the blues.
No, but it's songs like this in Heartbreaker that have influenced rock and roll to such a degree that even now, in 50 years later, we're still using it. Yeah. Still using the scale the way Zeppelin used it. It's brilliant stuff.
Amazing.
Excellent. Anyway, I thought we'd take a break now and just move on to a segment that we could do.
Why not?
Now, sir, I have prepared some lyrics for you from this album.
Lyrics.
So this new segment we got is called Guess the Lyrics.
Oh God, lyrics. You're gonna.
And so now, what we're gonna do?
See if the drummer knows the lyrics.
Don't you have the lyric sheet, knowing what you have to play? No,
I don't care about lyrics though. I used to write lyrics.
So what we're going to do is I've picked some lyrics from this album. Just got 5 little examples. I'm going to see if Felipe can guess which songs they're from.
It's going to be a disaster.
Well, I haven't gone obvious. I haven't put in Squeeze My Lemon or Want a Whole Lot of Love. So you're not going to get the easy ones. So we'll go for number 1. With a purple umbrella and a 50-cent hat.
Purple umbrella and a 50-cent hat. Wait a minute. God, I talked about this. No, that's not. Living, Loving, Maid?
Yeah, well done.
Cool.
How did you get that?
Cool. Somehow it reminded me of the pace of the vocals, because it's a faster one, isn't it? To fit those words, it could be.
It's also important the way he accents it. He goes, with a purple umbrella.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Without the melody, it's hard, man. Yeah. But okay.
Right, number 2. In the darkest depths of Mordor.
Rumble on!
There we go. Didn't even need to finish it. I had a backup of the lyric after, because anyone who knows me knows I'm a massive J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings fan, so I had to get in this reference. Yeah. Robert Plant was also a huge Tolkien fan.
Well, you can tell.
Yeah. So, and the lyric after this is, so what is it? In the darkest depths of Mordor, I met a girl so fair, but Gollum and the evil one crept up and ran away with her.
Do you know, first time I paid attention to those lyrics, I was like, "What else?" Because I'm not familiar with Tolkien stuff, and I didn't read Lord of the Rings. I was like, "What's Mordor? Is there a place in England that I don't know?"
It's just up the road from Birmingham.
Just up the road from Birmingham.
Yeah, after Birmingham, before Wolverhampton, you got Mordor.
Mordor.
Yeah. But actually, there's another song. Quickly, do you know which other song is a Tolkien-based song?
Battle of Evermore, maybe?
Oh, do you know what?
No.
I don't know. It's either Battle of Evermore or... What's the song about?
You just asked me a question.
I know, because I know the lyric though. The lyric is the riders ran in black, bring it back. That is Battle of Evermore, isn't it? Yeah, that's that one. There's a few lyrics about Tolkien in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, well done. That's 1 out of 2. Number 3.
2 out of 2. Come on.
Oh, you got it. Yeah, you got it. Well done. So here's number 3.
Stealing the point from me. Right.
Number 3. Catch the wind, see us spin, sail away, leave a day.
A minute. What's this and what should never be?
Well done, the chorus.
All right.
Catch the wind, see you spin, sail away, leave it in, way up
it.
high in the sky. Number 4. Work so hard, can't unwind, get some money saved.
Tough one. You're not repeating songs, are you?
No, these are all different.
Bring Her On Home?
No.
Totally guessing. I have no idea. What's that?
I'll give you the one after. Work so hard I can't unwind, get some money saved. Abuse my love 1,000 times, however hard I try.
Lemon Song?
No.
Oh, God. I'm totally lost here.
Should I sing it?
Hmm?
Work so hard I can't unwind, get some money saved. Abuse my love 1,000 times, however hard I try. Heartbreaker, your time will come. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, should have gone into that part.
Heartbreaker, your time will come, yeah. Right, last one. Shake for me, girl. I want to be your backdoor man.
That's easy. Whole lot of
Oh, you knew that. I didn't know because it's probably
that's
the most...
right at the end.
It's probably the most obscure lyric in the whole song.
Do you know what is? Because when I first learned to play that song, there's a drum fill that goes kind of next, just before or during that line.
Oh, really?
And I was like, wow, that's an interesting line.
Well done, mate. 4 out of 5, and that concludes this week's episode of this week's segment of Guess the Lyrics.
Guess the Lyrics.
Excellent. So let's pick up from where we left off. After Heartbreaker, we have the song "Living Loving Maid."
Is that side B of the album now? I don't know how it was.
No, I think Heartbreaker starts side B.
All right.
I think.
Yeah. Well, we can. Oh.
Yeah. Why not? Anyway, let's talk about "Living Loving Maid."
Yeah. Oh. Underrated song, in my opinion. You said to me before we started recording this that Jimmy Page doesn't like it.
They never played it live because Jimmy Page hates it.
We are unwrapping the album now.
It's not brand new. I seal all my albums in these protective cases.
So organised.
But yeah, "Living Loving Maid." Yeah, so Heartbreaker starts side B.
Yeah, side B. So we do. So that song, again, if you just take the chorus, it's almost like a pop song somehow. But yeah, it's fast paced again.
Yeah, good point. The song was about a woman who stalked them on tour in 1969.
One of their groupies,
yes.
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So again, that's interesting in terms of like songwriting, in terms of lyrics. So if you're writing about the groupies, that's like real life experience. They're talking about people they know.
Real life rock and roll experience.
Real life rock and roll experience. And not everyone has that kind of experience. But yeah, so they're writing about people they knew in real life, and it's cool. I mean, so it's when you start to become a storyteller, isn't it? And,
yeah. When lyrics are important to conveying the message of the song.
I do think that song could have been a hit if it wasn't, in that album with Heartbreaker and Whole Lotta Love.
Well, it's funny because
Ramble On.
the Living Loving Maid, the riff that comes after the lyrics is again in that minor pentatonic blues thing. It's another one. But the chorus of that song, so you've got the normal Zeppelin thing with that riff, and that's very Zeppelin, isn't it? A riff based upon a scale. And then you go to that gorgeous chorus where John Paul Jones does his thing again with that beautiful melodic bass stuff. And Bonham just gets so into the groove with that chorus, doesn't he? Because he's playing quite fast and quite hard for the verses, and then he just slows it down and just starts playing so gracefully on that chorus. I think it's lovely, isn't it?
It is amazing. They did pay attention to all the details, and again, they're not showing off in that one.
Yeah,
there's no
another pop song.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, it's simple.
That's this podcast's definition of pop music. Playing for the song, not for the instrument.
Yeah. There you
go. After that, it's actually one of Zeppelin's most famous songs, I think, is Ramble On. Quick fact, Ramble On was never played live until the reunion gig in 2007.
Oh yeah, that's true. I
love that.
version.
I thought they'd have played it over and over again.
And it's such a song. I've seen a video of Page and Plant performing that one live. Because they performed it live in 1994, 95.
Page and Plant, but not Zeppelin.
Not Zeppelin. When they toured after recording Low Quarter.
Yeah. Well, it's a great song, isn't it? And again, it's another hint to the folky side of it.
It is. And again, you have Lighting Shades. In that case, it's so obvious.
Yeah, I agree.
There's there's kind of a percussion vibe with the drums and during the verse, but he explodes into this heavy groove when the chorus starts. It's just a massive contrast. They just said this is it. Folk, quiet during the verse, and loud hard rock for the chorus.
Isn't it interesting that they did that with What Is and What Should Never Be, but not the folk? They did psychedelic for the verse, rock for the chorus, and now for Ramble On we're getting folk for the verse, rock for the chorus.
You can claim they're kind of repeating the formula, but the melodies and the lyrics are so different and everything else. So they're using that one simple idea of light and shade, of contrast, of dynamics and power versus relaxing, whatever you're going to call it.
Yeah.
So it's so evident, but on the other hand, I think no one has done it to that extent until that point in time.
Yeah, excellent. A little fun fact that I was found out when I was doing my research. As we've mentioned loads of times, they recorded this album whilst on the road.
Yeah.
Now things were really hard. I know, like we said, they went to the hut, which had minimal equipment. The percussion on this song, the one that's just going through the whole verse. It's just, isn't it? It's just Bonham doing that. Yeah. He played it on a guitar case.
Was that it?
And they stuck a microphone on it, and he's just he's on Page's guitar case going. Someone else said he did multiple takes so that they could find the perfect tone. Maybe it's in my notes.
That is an interesting stuff.
So they played the percussion on a guitar case, a drum stool, and a garbage can.
And then they chose the best one.
And then a garbage can. And either they mixed it all together and said, "Oh, we want less garbage can, more guitar case." That's another thing to think, isn't it? Yeah. Jimmy, turn up the garbage can, mate. I think we need the treble, a bit more treble.
Can I have a little bit of the low end of the guitar case?
Yeah, and just tweak the drum stool a little bit. I want some more low notes in there.
Again, that's quite an innovation for the time.
They just did what they had to do.
Yeah, let's record objects and use them as music.
Yeah.
So
I remember we played a gig once, didn't we? I can't remember what the gig was, but I remember you used a box of matchsticks.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what it was, the gig, but we just needed something, and you had some matchsticks, and you just went.
Yeah, everything is percussion. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And Bonham was a percussionist. If you really listen to everything he was doing, there's so many elements there that are not from, drummers.
Yeah,
it's not the kind of stuff that a drummer would do, but a percussionist would definitely do.
Amazing. Well, then this brings us on nicely to. We've already spoken about this, so we don't have to go on too much. But Moby Dick.
Moby Dick, again, I just want to say again that it is a blues song, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a blues chord progression.
At the start.
Very simple and totally written for the drummer to show off, and that was it.
What's great about this song is that you could easily have ended it. I think actually this makes the song perfect. They start and they play the riff, then they all cut out and it's just Bonham doing his thing, but then they play the same riff and they leave all the space for Bonham to do some crazy fills. For me, that makes the song, because if you just do riff as the first repeat, drum solo and the same riff again, the song hasn't gone anywhere. You've just played a riff, you've given the drummer a solo, and you're back to the riff. Yeah. The fact that they've done the riff, given the drummer the solo, and then introduced the riff with some crazy fills that Bonham does in those gaps,
exactly,
that elevates the song to the next level. And I know some people, or I've heard that some people skip the drum solo in this song. It's okay. Yeah. I don't berate them for that.
Who likes the drum solos? I mean,
they're better than bass solos, aren't they? But I will. For me, I
don't know, because I've never paid attention to a bass solo. I can't tell you. But anyway.
What was I saying? Fuck you. I will always. Now I know why your grooves when I bass solo are so simple. You're just doing what you know, right? Turning off, watching the Formula One on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, bass solos. No one wants to hear them.
What was I saying? Yeah, I will listen to Moby Dick from start to finish because I feel like I've earned it. By the time I get to the end of Moby Dick and he's doing all those awesome fills in the gaps of the riff,
yes,
it feels like the journey has come to an end, and that's why I think it's a really, really good song, despite it being an uncommon instrumental.
Yeah, interesting. It's a journey. So basically, they are still acting like storytellers, even if there's no lyrics.
Yeah.
There's a clear journey. This is the beginning. This is, and there's a climax with the solo, but they kind of Bonham keeps soloing until the end somehow. Really cool. And one of the most famous drum intros of all time.
Yeah.
So if you play that on a snare drum, that's it.
People know what it is, yeah. Excellent. So this brings us on nicely to the final song of the album, which is, actually, I think it's the only song of the album that is credited to someone else, because this is a Willie Dixon song called Bring It On Home.
Yeah.
And what they did for this one...
they kept the title.
Exactly. And they kept, I don't know what you want to call it, they paid homage to Willie Dixon. They used, it's basically like a cover. The first and the start and the end of the song is basically a cover of the Willie Dixon version. Yeah. He plays guitar the same, he's got the harmonica... Plant is singing in that style,
and I think it's the only time. Okay, just realize this: the only time when they play in that specific part of the song, they're not trying to take the blues to another dimension. They play it just like the original.
They are leaving it as the blues
with the harp and everything. It's just like let's sound like the original song.
Yeah. And so then after that, the middle section is just Zeppelins, all of that. The middle bit is all Zeppelins, despite the fact that it's a Bring It On Home. You got that really cool riff. And then they get Zeppelin-y, don't they? They put their stamp on the song.
Again, Light and Shade is a heavy section after that.
Again,
and I think it's an interesting way to end an album. It's definitely not the most powerful song in the album, and comes just after the drum solo thing. It's
great. Well, really good song and great album. So that's it. We'll come to the end of the album. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Give us on social media. Give us tell us what you think of the album and what your favourite song is.
And if you haven't listened to Led Zeppelin II, what are you doing? What are you doing
think
here?
It's a good place for us to start, isn't it? I don't. No, don't.
Stop watching this. Go listen to the album. All right.
Exactly.
So we're gonna do one of our segments now. And this is Laz Unleashed. Laz is going to say something controversial.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. I do not necessarily agree with Laz.
When he unleashes.
Actually, officially, I never agree with Laz. There you go. I don't know what we're going to say.
That's only when we're in the band.
I do this.
Never, ever.
I don't know what you're going to say. I don't want to have my name associated to your...
You might like this one. So this week's segment of Laz Unleashed, I have gone for a statement that I fully believe to be true, that others may not. Again, that's the whole point of Laz Unleashed. Here's my statement. The Lemon song... Are you okay?
Yeah, it's good.
The Lemon song is one of the best bass performances ever in the history of bass guitar, double bass, everything bass. The Lemon song for me is the perfect example of a bass line.
Perfect example. I like that. Sure, I don't disagree with you at all.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah. 3
episodes in, and
I think
took it.
I think I'm going to be even more controversial and say at that point John Paul Jones was as good as Jaco Pastorius. Just saying.
Well, the reason I'll give you my reasons for it. As a bass player, I feel that my duty as a bass player is to connect the drums to the melodic instrument. So in our case with Jack, it's connecting the guitar and vocals to the drums.
To explain the joke from the singer to the drummer, isn't it?
I love this one. Yeah, well, I always forget it.
In case you don't get it, that's what the singer or the guitar player means. Yeah.
Wait, say again, I missed it.
In case you don't get it, that's what the guitar player means. That's what you're doing to me. Like,
no, how do you say it?
Are you explaining a joke?
Oh, so yeah. So the bass player is like, what's he doing? He's explaining the joke that the drummer told him.
Yeah. No, yeah.
to the
from the guitarist to the drummer.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, the drums cannot play notes, so you've got the guitar playing the melodies and the chords and the harmonies, but the drums is doing the rhythm, and the bass needs to connect them both by playing notes that complement the guitar and the vocals, and playing rhythms that work with the drums. And I think that on the Lemon song, John Paul Jones is just doing a stunning example of both. He's keeping the groove stunningly well with Bonham. He's playing not only the root notes that make Jimmy Page's chords sound right. It's not jazz they're playing; it's rock. They got to be together. But the fills he does, the little fills that he does. There's one that they're just stunning. Stunning.
When Plant is improvising the vocals, you can claim that what happens underneath is a bass solo. Some people don't call it, but I think it's a bass solo because the guitar is very quiet there, don't play much. and the drums are keeping the groove and following the bass. It feels to be like Bonham is following John Paul Jones, not the other way around. So if it's not soloing, he's leading.
Fine, I'll take that. Yeah, the thing that you said that convinced me most is that Bonham is following Jones.
Yeah,
that's the most convincing argument for me that it's a bass solo. But again, I just think it is just. Every time I hear it, and I must have listened to it. Well, I tried to learn it when I was younger, so I must have listened to it a good 100 times, and it blows me away every time. I don't think there is a more complete, perfect example as to what constitutes modern day electric bass playing than in
well done
Leather Lemon Song.
Yeah. Well,
there you go. So maybe not that controversial, but that brings us to the close of another segment of Laz Unleashed.
Right. Great stuff, Laz.
So, we've done the album now.
Yeah, that's
really
it.
Stuff. Any final thoughts?
Just one thing that crossed my mind when we were talking specifically about Lemon Song. There's a bit of funk during that bass stuff. Yeah. So I think they kind of introduced funk rock as well at that point, a specific point.
It's certainly an early hint, isn't it?
Well, there wouldn't be Red Hot Chili Peppers without Led Zeppelin for sure.
Yeah.
And Chad Smith, Red Hot Chili Peppers drummer, claimed that he got most of his funk influence, or some of his funk influence, from John Bonham.
Really?
He wasn't a funk drummer.
He wasn't, yeah, exactly.
But he's a rock drummer. But you can hear that. So it's just saying Led Zeppelin II is folk, psychedelic, pop, hard rock, blues, funk.
Everything
in 1969.
Yeah.
Wow.
But isn't it funny that you identify those little nuances, but it is a rock album.
It is rock, essentially.
It is, yeah. So it's brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Last thing I want to say about it is, if there is any list of mandatory rock albums you need to listen to, this is definitely one of them. It has to be in any. I mean, it would be in any of my lists. You know? Yeah,
well, I didn't even write down how many lists they're in because I did it with a whole lot of love because there's only a few of them. But there you go. But we should talk about the album cover quickly because I did some research on that.
Oh.
So this album cover was
done. Bikers, those guys.
No, they're not. Let me tell you what it is. This is a regiment of the German Air Force during World War One.
You're joking?
No, there's an original picture. So what he's done is he has taken this photo, he's added the heads of the band members in, but in the original photo there's a German fighter plane behind them. Yeah. So all he's done is to protect the identities of the soldiers. Excuse me. He's put facial hair and glasses on.
That's why they look like bikers.
The artist is a guy called David Juniper, who Jimmy Page went to college with, and he did this.
That's some innovation right there.
It is, yeah.
Early Photoshop.
Exactly, literally, yeah. Now I've read something about this one, but I can't remember. But anyway, it's a German World War One Air Force division, and I think the artwork inside is just lovely as well, isn't it?
And for those who are only listening, the artwork inside is
Google it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you just have a massive Zeppelin, with their names, and it's how confident they were about themselves. You have their names on. How can you describe this?
You say that it's like a monument. So the Washington Monument in America.
It looks like that.
It looks like that you just have this monument that's giving praise to Zeppelin
with their names on it and the light. It's like we are really cool.
And with a massive golden Zeppelin above it. So anyway, that's the album.
Lots of self-confidence.
Yeah.
There.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us on our third episode. We've absolutely loved reviewing this album. It's one of my favourites. I'm sure it's one of Felipe's favourites. Sure. Please find us on social media. You can find our podcast at longliverocknrollpod on Instagram and Twitter, and we've got a Long Live Rock and Roll podcast page on Facebook, so come in, give us a share, give us a follow, get involved in the discussions. We've had a great time, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, everyone. Keep on rocking.
And as always, long live rock and roll.